Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Masquerada. Our friend Cicero here was just played. Hopefully not too badly. Hello, random lore. Only use the Savara's law. The angles of quadrant aren't given. Of course you define them first. Quadrilateral was divided into triangles, yes? Yes, I tried to apply Rashiva's theorem, but incorrect. Rashiva's theorem requires the triangles perpendicular lines. Really, I done your credias in a week. How are these sorts of questions you're asking me? So I'm assuming that's some kind of, maybe not calculus. Well, calculus, if I remember correctly, was invented in the 15th century. These guys seem to be around. I know so little about exact periods of Renaissance, especially Renaissance Italy. They might be 14th century. I could maybe see a push for 16th. They might be doing calculus. It's hard to tell. I don't know. The world is so different from Earth that it's hard to be sure. We got some lore stuff from last episode. Let's look through this. So, Calden. I've been unkind to this man. More than necessary, and far more than his behavior is warranted. He travels with me, protects me in battle, looks out for my interests, pulls more than his share of weight, and he asks for nothing in return except to stay, help found Razatov, and for me to answer a few questions about myself. In return, I cast suspicions over him and shun his efforts at reaching out. Ages have I been away from civilization for so long that this is my response to hospitality? He still hides something, that much I am certain, but perhaps I have been wrong to treat him with such wintry temperament. Ombre is a cold city with a frozen marrow, but that does not mean we should let the chill of his art seep into our own. Okay, so warming up to him. We got another 8 or so of those. Amadea. After all that's happened, after all that we've discovered, I cannot say that I am unsurprised at her departure. For a woman who claims to be invested in the histories of the past, it makes no sense that she would just take off like this. If she had other leads that she would be willing to pursue, then perhaps I would be less surprised, but so much of her work has been destroyed. Where else does she plan to go? What else does she plan to do that's going to be more fulfilling or shows more promise than the leads that we have? It is frustrating, truly, that such a great resource has left us. It sounds callous, indeed, that I would simply refer to her as such, but from the way she has behaved, I reckon she'd be glad if I had chosen such a word. She's intentionally kept as much of her heart out of this as possible, and I'd respect that decision. Let her leave her heart out, but there must be some way to at least bring her head back into this. And she's a pretty good fighter. She might even be better than Tizana. We have lore here, yeah, the culture and the Accredited and Vamas test. Within the registry, there are 2 tests that its members must suffer that will determine which role in the organization they would be most suited for. These are the Accredita and the Vamas test. The Accredita compromises examinations that assess a candidate's knowledge in various fields, ranging from Ombre's history to the geopolitical climate of Midnight Belt and slightly beyond, to calculus and mathematical reasoning. Okay, so we are past calculus. The Vamas test, on the other hand, assesses a candidate's prowess with the media and efficiency in combat. Those that score well in the former are often designated to the registry's research wing and join the ranks of the Vigilis to become academics, while those that score better on the latter join the Praetari, as I did, to train and become martial enforcers of the registry's will. Members that do well in neither of them are simply left at the bottom rung of the hierarchy and perform the most menial tasks within the registry, often without even the privilege of a masquerine. Which makes sense. You don't need a masquerine. Well, why would you even need a masquerine as a Vigilis? That's more of a status marker than anything. I mean, it's purely, we've only seen masquerines used in battle. Are there any reason why you would want? Well, I guess think of it as benders, right? We keep making this comparison to Avatar and Earth, Fire, Water benders. I mean, fire and earth bending is actually pretty useful in the Avatar world. Just wondering why an academic would want it. Doesn't seem to be much use. I don't know why you would waste the masquerines that way. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, let's move on to story time. Oh, okay, back to the twins. Alright, twins, looks like we're kind of on our own here. Let me go ahead and level up my skills here. I have 3 skills. Well, do we want to move to Tempest, maybe? Slows down by 30%, but generates threat. Not really what Cicero's good at. Swap position with the enemy or ally. Swapping will interrupt. There you go. The interrupt is what I want. Yeah, let's do that. What do I want to replace? I kind of want to replace Lightning Blade. Because all that does is activate elemental tags, and that's fine, but... I don't know, the squirrel's not great. I guess the bleed's okay, but... Yeah, let's replace the squirrel. Maybe... A nearby enemy take 30 damage within 3 meters. That's pretty good. Target has an ally, but the caster and that ally get a 30% damage reduction boost for 5 seconds. Let's do Flurry. And let's replace that. Yeah, replace the squirrel. Alright. Good to go. Alright, twins, what do you got for me?
Where is the mariner?
He wanted to go to the Hall of Song, sir. Asked us to take him there while you went inside.
Well, take us there, please. I should speak with him. And hopefully catch up with an old friend, too.
And away we go!
Really, Ricardo? One of these days you're going to have to sort these seats out.
Is something bothering you, sir?
There are papers everywhere.
Papers?
My brother does like his notes messy, sir.
Well, take it from me. You could... Hang on. Now, what's this?
What is what?
History of Medea. Summarized points.
Oh, sir, you weren't supposed to find that. Please just...
Is he taking his Accredita?
Calculus. Quite a few formulae. These are rather small for notes, aren't they?
What, Ricardo, are you?
They're
Making a cheat sheet?
Cheat sheets.
What? Oh, no, you're not to... You're not going to report me, Inspettori, are you? I failed twice already.
Depends. If you can find me a place to stay for the night that's free from the mire of politics, I'll consider.
Really? Oh, well, all right then, sir. Prepare to be, freed of the mire of politics, I mean.
Seems like there would be tests, some way of stopping cheating. He can't have been the first one to think of it.
One more thing, before you return.
Of course, sir.
If you could go back to the Cleaver and find Amadea. Red hair, tied into a braid, wearing Dieci clothes. Shouldn't be too far from the ruins. Tell her or the registry, would like to speak to her.
We'll keep an eye out, sir.
And away they go. The Hall of Songs. Shortly after the clearing of the Black Crib, the Vegulists, who were to become the songstresses of the city, decided to construct a monument to protect the tree that had been unearthed, and to provide a sanctuary of a sort for the troubled citizens of the country. Thus, the Hall of Songs was constructed, and today it serves as the house of the nation's legacies and a favorite place for uneasy souls to find solace. Alright, let's look around a little bit, see if there's any lore around. Hello, ladies. Nope. Cool coach, though. That's probably the fancy owner right over there. Anybody else? There's some cats around. Nope. Can't even traipse over the grass. Cicero is far too behaved for that kind of behavior. In we go. The Hall of Songs. Okay, here we go. Lore over this way. The first canticle. The first canticle lasted for 12 Missoura, 1 to 48 years, effectively, and ended shortly after the construction of Prima Campa. During the first canticle, Ombre was principally a fishing village, with most of its residents living closer to the shoreline. There were fewer fae the farther and farther they were from the ruins, but they wished to stay close enough to Sierra Verde, for it was most abundant in Masquerines. Though the people of Ombre quickly discovered the power of the Masquerines, they did not understand them enough to embrace them. Salting wasn't understood, and there were many casualties and mines lost to the Masquerines. This created great apprehension that surrounded the Masquerines, as well as respect for those willing to bear the burdens of using him. Tales of the exiles who had somehow managed to survive in the dark beyond trickled back to Altamira, and, after time enough of dealing with the oppressive and suffocating weight of the country, many Altamirians decided to emigrate to Ombre, sustaining the new nation's population. Soon enough, the fishing village had grown too full, and, unwilling to push further into the cavern under the mountain and face the dangerous beasts that lay within, the people decided they would need to establish another settlement that would provide them with more than simply fish. Primacampa, the first of what was to be known as the Randigia, was founded and the end of the first canticle was called for. Talking about probably 100 years at least to do that sort of thing. That's probably the second canticle. Yep. The second canticle lasted 18 Misura, 49 to 120, and is considered by some to be the most peaceful of the canticles. Life during the second canticle was simple and resolved mostly around agriculture and feeding one's family. Yeah, peaceful, but hard work. There were no wars with other nations and little strife within the country itself. The Randagaya continued to expand as the city remained stagnant, and the relationship between the two was warm. They were, after all, part of the same country and believed that the other deserved as much as they did. The portieri were established in order to protect the citizens, both the Randagai and the city, from Fae. The first two media, Mendanzia and Marabusto, were founded. After the salting of the Valencio Altar and Vamas, and training schools were set up to harness the power of the Medea. The nation was seeing progress, and its growth attracted the eye of its fatherland, Altamir. Or Altmiri, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Tales of successes of Ombre did not stay within the silent stones that bordered the country. Word of its flourishing spread rampantly through the streets of Altamira, leading a great many to question the will of their priests. For so long, they'd been told that what lay in the dark beyond was a wasteland. There was no life there, and there could be no life there. Yet, there, the Ombrians were not only surviving, but thriving. Through the Altamirian theocracy decried the heathen nation of Ombre. Their words failed to settle the doubting hearts of their people, and the chief priest knew that action had to be taken. One of the more popular chief priests of Altamiri, Barovian Gavalian, was sent to Ombre under the guise of a disillusionment. He proclaimed the greatness of Ombre and convinced the Ombrians that he'd seen the truth. The Admirians were wrong, the Orion religion was a sham, and one day he assassinated the Varun, Ramos del Zol. In response, the Ombrians executed Barovian, giving Altamira the window it was looking for. The rest of the priests in Altamira told their people that the heretics had murdered Barovian and, hiding under their flag of revenge, declared war upon Ombre. Thus, the March of Broken Songs began, and the second canticle was declared over. Wow, the chief priest basically did a kamikaze move to start a war. Just to create some kind of casus belli. Wow. That's all kinds of fucked up. Do we have any more canticles here? So that's the story. We would continue on there. This place is freaking huge. Might just be the first ascent to canticles here. Oh, they're surrounding the box there. Oh, more lore over here. This looks like a fucking-enormous tree. The Singing Tree. The Singing Tree was unearthed during the clearing of a set of ruins known as the Black Crib. Its branches were the first parts the adventurers saw that hinted at its presence, and which prompted further excavation. When the tree was fully unearthed, what surprised the Vigilus the most wasn't the sheer size of the tree, though that was indeed impressive, but rather the fact that it was still alive. How long it had been there, none can say for sure, but for the tree to have reached the size that it has, the Vigilus suspect it could perhaps have been around since the time of the Demicate. In the half-century or so since it has been uncovered, the answers to the question of its longevity still remain shrouded in mystery. I mean, aren't trees effectively immortal? Oh, that probably goes up. Which I don't think I can do quite yet. But I thought as long as the tree doesn't get diseased or anything, they're effectively immortal. Maybe I'm wrong. Songstresses. Songstresses of Ombre are the keepers of City's soul, in charge of singing and storing the legacies of the Masquerada. The songstresses are the most venerated of all in the city, and are respected by all the colors of the Masquerade. Okay, cool. Doesn't exactly tell me what they're singing for, though they probably... There's probably like some cultural ties, like the... like before there was writing, there were the songs, and it's just kind of kept there for cultural, like, legacy reasons. So, okay, let's see what they're doing with the box. This can't be good. Then they're calling
Thank you,
some Fae.
sisters. Orlana, will you please take the chime and place it where it belongs?
Okay, that wasn't so bad.
Mirabas?
Cicero?
It's been a while.
Oh, Cicero, it is you. Come here. I never thought. Why have you returned?
Business, I'm afraid. I cannot speak too much of it.
I understand. But here? Have you come to listen to some songs?
No. A friend of mine should be here. A mariner.
I believe I heard some of my songstresses speaking of one. He should be somewhere atop the singing tree.
I'll find him. Thank you, Mirabas.
Okay, let's find out why he's so interested. So first of all, voiceovers and chimes. During the excavation of the Black Crib, the tree, or no, the thing that surrounded the tree, the discovery of the artifacts that were to be called chimes and vocifers were unremarkable at first. The mechanical boxes that were the vocifers weren't simply misunderstood. They were considered aesthetically displeasing, having strange lines etched into its material that jarred when set against the curves that were so common within Ombric art forms. Eventually, however, when enough research had been conducted in the artifacts, the Vigilists realized the chimes, when placed inside a vocifer, could hold and reproduce the songs that were sung to them. They changed Ombre. For the longest time, songs had meant so much to Ombrians. They were the epitome of what made them different from the Aldmerians, a central aspect of their identities, and when they realized that their songs could be preserved forever, the chimes were bestowed with a status so sacred, it was almost as though they were revered. It was as if the Ombrians had developed a religion of their own, in their attempt to stay as far away from the fanatic piousness of the Altamirians. Though the legacy system has no gods or pantheon, it is still taken incredibly seriously by the Ombrians. Well, songs are an important way to preserve culture. Mirabas. There are few people in the world that my heart leaps at the thought of meeting, but Mirabas is one of them. She and I have a long history together, a history that began the night she saved my life. I suppose that seems to be a theme in these tales, people saving my life here and there, but I suppose in a city of death and shadows, one doesn't spend 3.5 decades living in its streets without brushing death. To simply refer to her as the blind leader of the songstresses is to do her a disservice. She is more than capable despite her blindness, and more than kind enough despite her place among the Masquerada. But to think that due to her possession of magnanimity, she is incapable of darker things is also foolish. Those who harbor these such sentiments have yet to truly be welcome to Ombre. Power in the city, no matter its form, is never won with clean blades or, in her case, untainted voice. Mirabas's history is long and not without complications. She wasn't always blind, and she wasn't always a songstress. She doesn't often indulge in the telling of the two tales, and most in the city are too preoccupied with themselves to bother inquiring. But there are others in the city who have nothing but time in their hands, have been tempted enough by curiosity to ask. When I'd first posed the question to her about how she lost her sight and how she'd risen to her current position, I hadn't expected both questions to be answered in a single tale, much less braced myself for the Odyssean narrative that she'd then unleashed upon me. In a story far too long to recount in these pages, but suffice to say, it contains great loves and great losses of all kinds. The convoluted, dramatic weave that their entwining has created has never failed to astonish me. I believe even the greatest storytellers of the region would have to spend night after sleepless night in search of so tragic yet hopeful a muse as a seed to fabricate such a story. Perhaps one of these days, when all of this blows over, I shall encourage her to pen a book of it. I've thought of encouraging her to compose her soul song with details, but I daren't let such a macabre suggestion leave my tongue. I'm not superstitious, but I know better than to tempt fate. Could she write? I guess probably like a braille system, or at the very least she'd be able to tell her story to others. Being blind, that complicates things quite a bit, but definitely possible. Alright, so if we go to get the mariner back and maybe apologize. Singing tree, trunk. It's a very tall tree. Songs and legacies. When they first left Altamira and established Ombre, the first thing he did to distance his people from their past was to embrace what the Altamirian culture had considered heathen, the arts. In the ascetic Oriental religion that Altamir followed, the arts and outward displays of emotion were considered pathways to corruption. The human soul was intrinsically foul, and connecting with and expressing base desires and urges was only going to poison the minds of the people. When the nation was founded, however, there were no artisans of any sort, and so the simplest and perhaps most universal of all the arts was used as the base of this patronage of the art of songs. The culture of Ombre has taken the fascination with songs to great extents. The thing closest to a religion that's to be found in the city is our belief in legacies. Every family of Masquerada has a legacy, songs stored in chimes that are hung upon the branches of the singing tree. The chimes of every family's legacy hang upon the same branch, and allow the Masquerada to listen to the stories of his ancestors, reminding him of his familial duties and reinforcing the importance of the deeds he commits in this life. To the Masquerada who had once been the Continati, the concept of legacy is less meaningful. They have no branch on the singing tree and no legacy to preserve. I will admit, however, the idea that if you continue to live on after your death, even if only in song, has an appeal to it. Okay. There's the mariner over there. Anything else I want to grab while I'm here? Does not look like it. So this might be the Mariner's Tree. Or branch, anyway. Hello, Colin.
I'm sorry.
A strange choice of greeting.
That mask runner. If I hadn't done what I did, maybe she wouldn't have died.
It wasn't your punch that
She
killed her.
wouldn't have been the first mask runner you've killed.
True enough.
It's not about me. If she was still alive, maybe she could tell us where my brother is. Or where to find the artifacts.
You heard.
And learning how to create masquerades again is huge, I know. But somehow, compared to finding my brother, I say that I'm scared for him. But in the end, it is I that undermines our progress to find him. Razatov is that much further away now.
5 years ago, I was put on an investigation that led me to discover that my brother had been siphoning masquerades out of the Hall of Bearings. I didn't join him in the endeavor, obviously, but I let him go. When the registry found out, and word spread, the consensus at the time was that I had to be punished. Death by hanging was the easiest option, to remind the others what awaited them should they ever place their hearts above their duty. It was your brother that sacrificed much of his clout to negotiate the terms of my punishment. He managed to reduce it from a death sentence to one of exile. Your brother saved my life, Calden.
I didn't know that.
We'll get him back, Calden. On your Mariner's Moon. I'll promise that.
Thank you.
Okay, I was wondering how he saved his life. I thought maybe it was related to the test story, which didn't make a whole lot of sense, but this makes more sense. Alright, and away we go. Why put me back here and not immediately on the carriage, unless they want me to do something here? I can't imagine what that would be. Why not just put us right back on the carriage? I don't need to necessarily do it myself. No, there's no other way to go. Alright, back over this way, and yet another story over here. Didn't I already look at this? The fourth canticle, okay. Let's actually do this in order, because this over here is probably the third, right? Yep, that's the third. Yep, okay. So, third canticle might be the shortest of all the canticles, having lasted only 4 Missoura, but might well be considered to be the most impactful of them all. It was during the March of Broken Song that the Umbrians discovered their true potential. Forced to defend themselves against the Altamirians, who with their massive army outnumbered the Umbrians dozens to one, the people of Umbria used the Masquerades in ways they'd never before considered, to kill in masses. Okay, so that answers that question. What use are they out of combat? So good that they weren't even considered to be used as weapons until they were forced to. Once the Umbrians began to accept the devastating power of the Masquerades, the tides began to turn, and during a major skirmish at Mirage Valley, a group of Umbrians sacrificed themselves to collapse the mountain pass, sailing off the only passable route between Umbria and Altamir, effectively ending the March of Broken Songs and signaling the end of the third canticle. Okay, then the fourth canticle lasted for 12 Missouri, and was a period during which countries from across the Midnight Belt began noticing Umbria. Tales of power and masquerades spread through the lands and enticed curious foreigners, who, though not yet in droves, came to the shores of Umbria to personally ascertain what the truth of the matter was. Needless to say, all who came were sufficiently awed and returned to their homelands to spread the word. Immigrants began coming to Umbria, and guilds were established. The Altus Nobilis was founded in 145, while the Luca Invitia was born around 150. The Theralds arrived on Umbria's shores at this time as well, though no records can be found of when exactly that happened. The sign that the Vegelus determined ended the canticle was an auction in which Sihos Therald's painting of his family crest, emerald serpents crossed against the Black Sea, sold for a record-breaking number of crescents, and established the arts as a proper source of revenue. Finally, the great artist that Umbria had dreamed of since its inception had arrived, and the canticle was brought to an end. Okay. So is it purely just to get the war?
Calden?
Oh,
Tides.
Who is that?
Calden!
Please, Orlana.
Every marshal that I've spoken to says that you knew him well.
Calden, who is this?
Inspectore, my name is Orlana Corvale. songstress of the Hall of Songs, and sister of Jax's Corvale.
Orlana, do not involve the Inspetore, please.
I had once tried asking the registry for assistance, but they turned me aside. Perhaps you will be kinder.
Orlana, you must move on.
How? My brother is dead, and I know not why or how, and the only lead I have refuses to answer my questions.
There is nothing to answer.
And so I approach an Inspetore, who certainly could do a better job than I.
Cicero, we have no time for this.
Let the Inspetore...
Jaxus is gone, and no amount of investigating is going to bring him back to the shores of life. He would want you to move on.
But please...
Orlana,
Calvin.
a shadow of my past. We should go.
Okay. The fuck? Many in the city tend to think the songstress is insular and isolated from the world of the rest of us in Masquerada, and sometimes reminders that they have histories that involve the other members of our society come as a surprise. Such is the case with Orlana Corvale. She is not a songstress that I am familiar with, but evidently, she shares some sort of history with Cullen that involved her brother, Jaxus Corvale. I am concerned to say the least. I hope this does not affect our investigation, but being as familiar with the movement of events of the city, I haven't got a very optimistic prognosis. Fair, everything seems to interconnect, it's very holistic around here. Okay, so that's why we didn't just immediately jump to the coach there, because they wanted us to tell us about that, but why didn't we jump to the coach now? Are there further things to explore? Or is the area just large enough to be impressive? I don't know, it seems like you don't want to waste all this art. I'm just puzzled at the size of these things sometimes. Guess we just move on.
What is this about?
No greetings, even?
Stop wasting my time.
All right. I want you to be a part of this investigation.
What?
You have expertise that my team is lacking.
This is not a good idea.
I can pay you 1,000 crescents.
You don't have that kind of money.
I will once I finish my job, with your help. Amadea, what is stopping you? Masquerades, the blood of the city. This is our chance to find out where they came from. For centuries, the histories of the land have been enigmatic. For the first time, that curtain is being lifted.
Fine.
Really?
Do you want me to back out now?
No. This is good. Thank you.
Just easier than you
No.
thought.
Where are we going?
Toth, found us a place yet?
Yes, we did.
We think you'd be most pleased with it, sir.
Well, let's hope you're right. So, what fruits have your search yielded?
It's a place called the Estiguary, sir.
Is it crowded?
Not at all, sir. In fact, the place is practically barren, save the people who own it.
The owner said the war's done a toll, but he's more than willing to house us for the night. For as long as we want, in fact.
Generous. How much is he asking?
He said it depends on who we bring back.
Ha.
Of course he did. I wouldn't put my trust in anyone who didn't hold a bargain.
I'm glad you think so, sir. We're just arriving.
In charge of president more than a serf, I suppose.
Tides. That's...
Beautiful.
All right, Ricardo. I hereby promise never to rat you out.
Never?
Sir,
Like
we'll
ever?
go in and tell the owner that you're here. We'll be right back.
I don't understand. This is too beautiful to be so... empty.
The owner was telling us that the people of the city forgot about it ever since the war started. In the first year of the war, the road that led here was frequented by masked runners.
Makes sense that people stopped coming.
What a pity.
I'm not shedding any tears. The more space we have to ourselves, the better, I say.
He's
Or it's a
ready
trap.
for you, sir.
They could be a trap. I mean, 4 years with no other people? Okay, Amadea. Ever since meeting her, I've yet to be unsurprised by her actions. First, she exhibits traits and mannerisms not what I'd expect from a member of the Daisy. Next, she proclaims a great interest in the Nimikati and their history, but yet refuses to come with us even at the prospect of learning one of the great mysteries about them. After that, she makes it clear that all required for her to come aboard the investigation was a promise of little wealth and a drop of aggression. There's only one kind of a character that I've come to recognize that would display traits as inconsistent as these, one with a shredded psyche, who is adrift, torn between a past perhaps and a crippling prospect of the future. I suspect she has lost herself somewhere in her history, and now she spends her days wandering about without a proper compass to guide her. Cases as this are all too common in Ombre, where so many yearn for second chances or a new lease on their lives. Many think that severing ties with the worlds in which they had once lived is an effective way of moving on from a tragedy, or coping with a loss of a sort. I know this, for I speak from experience. Traveling to the Diwali plains was my chance to start afresh, I believed, but as much as I tried not to think of the war of my brother, the more I tried to cut the past out of the present, the more it shaped me, defined me, paralyzed me. I turned to spirits and wines of relief. I ventured into dark areas of my mind that I'd rather not recount. I did all this, and still it was not enough, and now I see hints of a similar situation in her. I'm not intending to bring her along so that I can act as counselor, but if I might be able to provide a relief of some sort, the path that I'd once tread is the path I'd like to see no others journeying on. And, you know, having Calden in it, he'll probably try to draw her out eventually. And then we had the lore for location, and that was Astiguari. Located in the Shore of Shadows, the border between the light of the sun and the shadow of the mountain, that moves across the city as the day progresses. The Astiguari is an establishment that belongs to a good friend of mine, Levanthios Mirimbus. I'd never seen it before my return to Ombre. I'm more familiar with the Leaping Lion, Levanthios' previous inn, but I must say the Astiguari's facade is appropriately reflective of its owner's personality. Despite being the center of a dark city, the Astiguari remains beautiful and warm. Levanthos is very much the same. Though he lives in a city of shadows and deception, he has let none of them into his heart. But the guy knows freaking everybody. Okay, just looking around for anything else. Looks like they have a smithy over here. Would like to find some place to decorate the mass we've seen, or that we've gathered, but sadly, no luck. Alright, nothing else around. Let's go ahead and go inside. We should be properly announced by now.
All right. Let's see.
Cicero?
Hello, Ven.
Wait,
You know each other.
What? I don't believe it.
How have you been?
I should be asking you that question, you rascal. Why didn't you tell me you were bringing him?
We didn't know that.
Well, why don't the lot of you find some rooms that suit you? As you can tell, the entire place is basically yours.
About that, Ven. The twins were saying something about price.
Ha! Cicero, please. What do you think I am? The kind of man who swindles his friends? No, that treatment is reserved for the dastardly. You stay here for free.
Ven, I can't.
I insist.
And I insist not. You will take something, or I'm afraid I'm going to have to walk out.
All right. But remember, you insisted. Now, please, the...
Ages, Lucia. You had me worried.
Is this a bad time? I was out in the Pale Isle when I saw you leave the spire. I hope you don't mind that I followed you. I thought it'd be prudent for me to offer an apology.
The rest of you, call it a night. Get a room, get comfortable. I'm certain Leventhus over here can get you all settled in.
Definitely. We won't disturb. Promise.
All right. About suggesting that Avestus call you back, Cicero,
You can pay me back by telling me all you know about the mask runners.
Sorry?
Come on, you're hard of hearing now. You said you were investigating them, yes?
Unbelievable. All right. Over drinks?
Sounds like a plan. So, first things first. This herald.
Yeah, things we need to know. Unfortunately, they blacked it out, so... Oh. Act 2.
Fractured.
Lucius says that ever since the War of Bearings began, the mask runners have been fragmenting. Returning back to their factions, the way things were before my brother.
And which faction has Razatov?
They call themselves the Dactytes. They're the ones we met at the Quiet Order.
Led by the Herald.
Exactly.
And what do you plan to do?
Find this herald and get Razatov back. Simple as that.
There you are.
Oh, there she is.
Is she the result of the cleaver?
Result?
How did you find us?
I returned to the White Spire this morning. Inspector Lucia was there. Apparently, she'd been here for most of last night.
Can't hide forever.
Marshal, this is Armadea. She'll be lending us her expertise in the Dementicate.
You've spoken to her of the artifacts, then?
We have.
So, what are they? What do they do?
We're not entirely sure yet. Our leads in the Cleaver were destroyed.
What are your plans now?
We need to get Razatov back from the Mask Runners, a faction of them called the Dactytes to be specific, and we're going to do that by finding the Herald, their leader.
Direct. How refreshing. And how do you intend to find this herald?
By finding Lysandra Rorik.
What?
The leader of the Mask Runners.
Make a distinction, Marshal. Lysandra leads the Melakate. They're not the Mask Runners with Razatov.
Just tell me which groups I should be taking note of.
The first, the Dactytes, a new faction led by the Herald who have Razatov. The second, what remains of the Melakate, led by Lysandra, my brother's second in command.
And you want to find her because you believe she can lead us to the Herald?
Yes, and Lucia concurs.
Inspectori, those are mask runners you're talking about associating yourself with.
We're not colluding with them. We just need information.
They are fugitives of the law.
If you have another suggestion on how we should find Razatov, please, I'm all ears.
I hope you know what you're doing.
To find her, Lucia has suggested that we turn to a character called the Bloodless.
I suppose that is a smart move.
No.
Lucia didn't tell me very much about the man.
He is a man without honor.
He is a smart man of the Laboris Solus who recognizes the power of information and secrets. If there is anyone that can track a person down in the city, it is him.
The Luca have spent years attempting to locate this man. He's crossed more than a few of my guild's boundaries.
Note that we are not here to tend to the Golden Guild's interests.
You might not be.
You think Favio will be happy with you stopping this investigation just to catch one man?
Depends on the man.
Fine. I will not act against him.
I do not trust him.
Calden.
I am sorry, Cicero, but there are entities in this city that I do not wish to be involved with.
For the sake of your brother, even?
Low blow. Low blow.
As long as I don't ever have anything to do with him.
And how do you intend to establish contact with this enigma?
You seem to know a thing or two about him.
I've worked with one of his messengers before. Vasco Tessitore. He's often found in a tavern called the Bleeding Beetle. That is our best bet.
Then what are we waiting for?
Yeah, immediately. Just go. Off she goes. Alright, we have some lore here. Yep, and some new stuff right there. Alright, we're to find Razatov. Clear this Herald is our best lead. We aren't going to get anywhere without information about the identity of the Herald, however. And I believe I know just the person who might be able to help with that. Great. So the first lie has been fed. I cannot let her know that we have discovered the function of the artifacts that Razatov searches for. If she knows that they have the ability to create Masquerades, that will only advance and hasten the Luca's involvement. The Golden Guild needs to be kept out of this for as long as possible. I'm not unfamiliar with the toxic rewards we reap from a lie sowed, or how quickly and violently deception can destroy acquaintanceships if left to fester. I expect that she will not be the least bit pleased when, or if, she finds out that we have been keeping this information from her, but again, I cannot let that interfere with the advancement of the investigation. You do what you must, Marshal, and so will I. Dangerous game there. But the thing is, he is under strict orders not to tell anyone about the nature of the investigation. So, need to know basis might be the watchword there. Calden's response to the Bloodless has been unkind at best, savage at worst. What is it about the information broker that provokes him so? It must be whatever he's keeping from me. I should see if I can sieve out any further details. Again, doing exactly what he accused Calden of doing to him, but whatever.
What do you want?
You seem troubled.
I stick with you for one day, and already I'm part of plans to venture into the darkest parts of the city. Mask runners, the bloodless.
It is often in the shadows do secrets hide. And we are chasing big secrets.
What do you think the city will be like once we find Razatov and the artifacts?
Well, Masquerades will no longer be scarce, which means the fundamental threads that our society has been woven from will change. How that even begins to affect our world. The guilds might not even need to exist. The titles of Contadoni and Mask Runner might cease to mean anything. I really don't know.
I suppose we'll find out.
So that's not strictly true. I mean, just because you can create the Mastian does not mean that they'd be infinite. There would be some labor involved. I think maybe things go back to the way they were before the war, but I don't think that means everybody in the city gets a mask. Or everybody in the world gets a mask. That seems a little absurd. Maybe makes it a little bit less horrible when the mask disappears, but yeah, not I don't think everyone gets one. Sierra Verde. The mountain Sierra Verde has watched over Ombre since its inception and sheltered it from harsh weather. None have been able to explain the strange wound in the mountain in which the city nestles cozily, or how the mountain is still able to stand despite the gash in its base. In fact, little is known about the mountain at all. It's been around since the time of the Demigate, some extant records mention it, and the primary geological component of the mountain, a rock called the Ombrit, cannot be branded. That is close to all the knowledge we have on it. How the mountain came to be and what relationship it had, and perhaps still has, with the lands around it, remain mysteries. Oh, is that a picture of this? Okay, yeah, that's weird for sure. That is very, very strange. So that's the mountain. Okay. That is damn peculiar, I agree. Huh. That does not look natural in the least. Well, mysteries upon mysteries here. Alright, I guess we're ready to go. I suppose we should settle the bill first.
Ven, are you still interested in that hobby of yours? Collecting stones and fine metals and all that?
I haven't changed that much.
Well, have a look at this, please, and tell me all you can of it.
Oh, right. Forgot about that. Found that in the coal.
What is it?
I was hoping you could tell me. I have a feeling it's got at least a few, special properties.
I'll do some tests and measurements and get back to you about it when you return.
One last thing. Don't tell the Marshal about it, if you could.
My lips are sealed.
Alright. It is difficult to talk about Leventhos without smiling. The man is truly a joy to be around, an attribute that is scarce to be found in Ombre. Many who know me know that Leventhos has been a large part of my life for a long time, but if I'm to describe my relationship with the man, well, we must start at the beginning. Okay, so this is going to be a long one. Runic, just off the waters. Sirius suddenly motioned with the fingers of his free hand. He held the digit of his signing hand just beside his ears, so that it looked like he was playing with his hair or picking up his nails. It was a decent enough cover for communicating with Streak sign. No guards, he signed, which is unusual for the docks. Others called us foolish for deciding that this was a good spot to find prey, but Sirius and I knew what we were doing. The fact that there were often significantly more guards at the docks than there were at the other notorious hunting spots not only meant that we'd have to deal with less competition, but also that the pilfering would be easier. Guards were just as aware of reputation in certain places as we were, and they acted accordingly. Following my brother's gaze, I saw the man he'd be referring to, tall and lanky, with the trademark ebony black hair and pale skin of the Runic people. Indeed, guessing by the style of attire he'd chosen to don, he mustn't have been here very long, and his features. Runic people were infamous for their youthful looks, but this man couldn't have been any more than a decade older than I was. What was a young Runic man, who I guess had barely started his third decade of life, doing here? I waited until my brother looked over. Look at clothes and face too. Young? First trip? Must be, he signed back. I nodded, waiting for you. Sirius returned the slightest of nods and brought his free hand back to the book in front of him to turn a page. Glances slowly began falling out of my brother as he started to lower his cover. He made the peepholes in the book he was reading a little more obvious. He held the book a little higher and allowed a brown page or two of empty paper fall from it. To anyone who just started watching him, it was clear. He was a street rat, a lousy one at that, scanning for prey. They wouldn't do anything to him, not unless he moved. He wasn't worth their time, but he wasn't the one that lost the coin flip today. I shuffled through the crowd, my walk filled with purpose. I was a young dock worker who had been told his salary for the month would be halved for breaking that stupid precious Tesseric vase from yesterday's shipment. I frowned. I wasn't happy. People would catch on to that. They'd excuse my rough shoves. My journey through the mire of flesh and odors and sounds were just one of many plain journeys to the crowd, and any eyes that should have been wary of me all had much brighter target to keep watch over. The pathetic excuse for a pilferer that was my brother. I reached the runic man a few short moments, and sidled up behind him, helping him unload one of the shipments from the boat. Hear the winds from Rune are rough runes this time of year, I grunted, burning my voice a little. A little brine in the throat, salty fish between my teeth would finish the accent. We put the shipment down, and he made a shish sound. It must have been a runic grunt or something. He turned to me. Thank you for that, but I don't remember asking for anyone. At least he had come with a healthy dose of skepticism. Nah? I asked, cocking my head to the side. The boss over here said you needed some help, I said, pointing off behind him at one of the dockmasters. He turned his head to follow my finger. I'm sorry, I really don't... But I was gone. The snatch was perfectly executed. He tied a purse to his trouser with the typical runic knot. Simple lift of the knot's inner coil and a quick tug of the outer string was enough to release the catch in my hands. Why would you do that? It seems like... Okay. I don't know why you would knot a string. I guess it depends how the purse is arranged. I guess if you're tying the bag and then you tie the knot above it. Okay. I guess you need to undo the knot to undo the purse. It's fair, I suppose. There's got to be a way to do that otherwise. Blended the crowd as quickly as it emerged from it, caught my brother's eye, raised a single eyebrow and smirk, but my expression quickly faded as he waved at me, desperate. My grin quickly turned to a frown. What, did I pick the wrong man? Purse, no, he gesticulated frantically. I stopped in my tracks. What was it? I looked down at my purse in my hands and cupped the bottom, feeling its contents. They were hard. I tugged open the strings and turned the pouch upside down, its contents began to fall out in my palm. Whatever it was jingled on its way out, so what could possibly have been but 7 small black pellets fell into my palm. I hadn't instantly recognized them, though my curiosity at that moment drowned out the disappointment that they weren't crescents. They had a distinct smell, and it scratched at some buried part of my memory, but I couldn't quite identify what they were. Rolling one between my fingers made note of its features. It was hard and dense and smooth and oddly familiar. Where had I seen this before? Looked back up at my brother and began to sign. What are... I frowned. My brother wasn't looking at me, but his eyes were wide open and his mouth agape. Why wasn't he looking at... I spun around and followed his gaze, watching the shipment I had just helped unload come to life. The lid of the wooden box shattered, sending splinters flying into the air and people screaming, as a winged serpent, perhaps the size of a large dog, burst into the air. A viper tail. I looked back down at the pellets in my hand, and smell almost overwhelmed me with recognition. Dried bloodvine seeds. Catnip of the viper tails. My throat parched very suddenly as I looked up at my brother and his moving fingers. Run. He hadn't needed to sign that twice. Okay. Kind of just leaving the story in the middle there, but I suppose we know he survived. Though my guess is it's the near thing. The viper tail is the thing we saw in the trailer. Alright, so here we go. On our way out. Oh, actually, we're right at the end of the episode here, so I'll end here. The Bloodless. We'll look at that really quick. See what the... Okay, Masked Runner, Dacitite. Dacitites are relatively new factions of the Masked Runners. Never heard of them before my return to Ombre, and admittedly uncomfortable with this lack of knowledge. Hopefully the investigation will shed more light. Okay. The Bloodless, though. There'd be others. Suppose it's finally time the Shadows of Ombre coalesce into an entity. The other countries all have had Masters of Secrets for a while already, some more publicly known than others. Tessera has the Rysham, Rune has its Tizera family, Elysia has its Mindweaver, and now Ombre has the Bloodless. Of course, none of the true identities of the other countries' Masters of Secrets, save Rune's, are public pieces of knowledge. As an Inspectore, however, I have access to these resources slightly more readily than most. All I can say is it's a pity the Bloodless hasn't made an appearance some years earlier. I imagine a substantial number of my cases would have been made much simpler had I this reportedly well-informed character to turn to. I'm curious how deeply involved in the investigation he's going to be, and where the price he's planning on exacting for his assistance. Very good questions. We'll find out, well, next episode. Thanks for watching. This has been Masquerada. I'm Piece of the Universe here, Piece of the Universe 2, and I'll see you next time.